hated this book. I hated everything about this book. I recently made a video talking about all of my favorite books of 2025, and I think it's only right if I also make a video talking about my least favorite books of 2025. I just want to preface this with, I mean, no hate to these authors. These are all books that I did finish, so at the very least, they were good enough to not be DNF'd. And I say that very lightly because some of these I kind of forced myself to read, kind of like a hate read type of thing. So, I mean, that's on me, I guess. Also, some of these just, I maybe wasn't the target audience, but yeah, I don't want to be too harsh or mean to these authors. I just didn't love these books. Okay, I want to start with the best ones and then get to my worst one as I go. So I'll start with some of the 3-star reads. I would generally say that 3 stars is not a bad rating, and I would recommend almost anything like 3.5 and above, but 3 stars for me means that I enjoyed it, but there's some huge issues, or I enjoyed aspects of it, but I didn't love it. Starting strong with the best book in this whole video, that is Problematic Summer Romance by Ali Hazelwood. I love Ali Hazelwood, and honestly, this book was extremely entertaining, but I hated the way she made this romance. This was a age gap romance, and it was just so frustratingly annoying how much they talked about this age gap that like it almost felt like they didn't even like each other because of how much they talked about it. The only thing problematic about this book was literally that they would not shut up about this age gap. Like, I understand that was the premise of the book, but it was so weirdly described and obsessed over by both the male main character and the female main character. Specifically things like, they're gonna think I'm your daughter, or like just like stupid jokes like that. And then the male main character was like so obsessed with the fact that he was too old for her that he was being emotionally immature about it. And that's like, that makes no sense because you're supposed to be the older, mature individual in this relationship. And that just really annoyed me, but I really loved the main character, Maya. Also, I just loved the setting of this book because it was at her brother's wedding in Italy, I think. It was like a summer Italy wedding. This book is part of an interconnected series with Not in Love, which follows Rue and Eli's relationship, and Eli is Maya's brother. So she is at Eli and Rue's wedding, and all of their friends are there, and I fell in love with Rue and Eli and their friend group. So I did love some aspects of this book, but specifically the age gap, which is the entire premise of the book, I think was just done so poorly, and that's my biggest issue with this book. Moving on, this book I read for a reading challenge that I filmed on my YouTube channel, and I did not like this book at all. And if I wasn't filming a reading challenge, I 100% would have DNF'd. The first probably 60% of this book was so extremely boring to me, and I explained this in one of my videos. It was like a textbook because the premise of this book, by the way, this is Long Live Evil by Sarah Reese Brennan. The premise of this book is Ray, who is chronically ill, ends up inside of one of her favorite fantasy books as the villain. And what makes this book so annoying in the beginning is that it is telling you Ray's backstory. So you're getting introduced to Ray and her family and her life. At the same time, she's trying to explain to you the plot of her favorite fantasy book and all of the characters and the entire backstory and premise. Meanwhile, she doesn't even remember the book. So it reads like a textbook in a lot of ways, where you're just being thrown information about this book that she loves, but she doesn't even know what happens in the book. And then she gets thrown in the book and she's the villain, and she's supposed to be some evil, scary villain, and she's supposed to be, you know, teaming up with a bunch of villains to create a villain plot or whatever. And she's like barely a villain. Like they're not even doing villain things. So yeah, I didn't love this book, but truthfully, the very end of this book, the last like 25-30%, it hooked me. And I would have never gotten there if it weren't for the video that I was filming. So realistically, this would have been a DNF, but because I kept reading, it was 3 stars because I loved the ending of this book. But I'll say, I didn't love it enough to ever continue reading the book. So that's why this book is on this list, but I did end up giving it 3 stars. Okay, now just short of 3 stars, at 2.75 stars is Silver Elite by Danny Francis. I was very torn about this book because I had such a great time reading it in the beginning. And then it just lost me. I was so excited. It was like an adult dystopian book. I love dystopian novels, especially young adult ones. And I just really was so excited to read this book. I think the hype around it was a little bit too much because I thought I was about to have like a 5-star read and that might have affected my rating. But this book was not a bad book, I wouldn't say. It just fell flat for me. It was so exciting in the beginning. It was so good in the beginning. And then it just went downhill. All of the decisions that the main character makes are just stupid. And I think when you're reading a dystopian novel, you really want the main character to not necessarily be perfect, but you don't want them just consistently making bad decisions, because then it's like, in a lot of ways, you need a Katniss Everdeen. You need the hero, you need that. It makes it more interesting, and this just didn't have it. It just fell off. It wasn't for me. And I gave it 2.75 stars. And the only reason it was so close to 3 stars is because I enjoyed it in the beginning. Next book, 2.5 stars, is Time of Your Life by Jessa Hastings. If you watched my best books of 2025 video, you would see that Jessa Hastings' other 2025 release was a 5-star read for me. So this only being 2.5 stars is actually very shocking for me because I really enjoy Jessa Hastings' writing. I know the discourse around her using AI for writing is a thing now, so it has made me question if this was her writing or not, because I hated this book. I hated the writing. I hated the toxicity. I hated like almost everything about this book. And I don't even know why it has 2.5 stars. I think maybe just because I finished it. But yeah, the main thing I hate about this book is that it felt like a knockoff BJ and Magnolia, except they had none of the history and none of the chemistry of BJ and Magnolia. This was a toxic, cheating, not even really a romance book with no actual premise for any of it. Like, you can't say that they're in love with each other when they're cheating on each other and doing each other wrong, and they have no history, no chemistry, no anything. Like, that's not even, it just doesn't make sense. Like with BJ and Magnolia, there was a history and reasons and a care for each other that was like underlying all of their toxicity. This one is just straight toxicity. Like, there is no love. That doesn't even exist. And I hate that she tried to make this seem as if it was like one of those undeniable, like, instant connections, when it just wasn't. Another book I have on my list that I don't have here is The Mistake by Elle Kennedy. I think that was part of the off-campus series, and just right now, I actually can't even really remember reading this book, and I would say that's probably why it was ranked so low. Sorry, I'm looking up my review. I'd say that's why it's ranked so low, is because it was just so unmemorable and probably like a little bit boring. Yeah, I didn't even leave a review for this book. I don't know why I gave it 2.5 stars, and I'm assuming it was just unmemorable. I just read the description and it was just about John Logan and look already. Yeah, it was about John Logan and Chase. Oh yeah, and it was like a virginity taking book, and I guess I just don't love those, so yeah, that was my rating. I just think it was probably I think it probably just fell flat in a lot of ways. Next, this one is controversial because a lot of people loved this book, and it was Passion Project by London Sperry. Controversial because I've seen a lot of people love this book, and truthfully, I just hated it. I'm sorry, this lighting is so weird and my camera keeps dying, but I'm just gonna pick up where I left off. I think I was talking about Passion Project. I gave Passion Project 2 stars. I think this was extremely controversial because I saw a lot of people loved this book and I just really didn't enjoy it. I think that the characters, specifically the female main character, really bothered me. As you'll see, a lot of these books that I didn't enjoy, I have a really hard time remembering them. I only hold space in my mind for the books that I love. I'm sorry, that was just a joke. But yeah, so this is Bennett Taylor, and she meets Henry Adams after like a pretty traumatic life event happens to her, and they start going on passion projects because she doesn't feel passion for anything and he is supposed to be helping her with that. They fall in love with each other, I guess. That's kind of my problem with this book, is that I don't think she cared about him. If you love someone, there's a certain way you treat them, even if you are going through your own personal struggles. Even if your mental health isn't doing well, there's still a certain way you treat someone you love. And if your mental health is in a state where you can't treat this person in a way that they deserve to be treated or shown that you love them, then you're supposed to make that clear that you can't handle being in a relationship with them. Like, you don't get the best, you just don't get to have both. Either you love them and you care about them enough to protect them from that, or you don't. And that's my biggest issue with this book. I thought the passion projects were adorable and cute and fun. I thought the, growth that he was able to help her achieve was fun. I liked him as a character, but specifically the ending of this book and the way that she treated him, I hated it. So I gave it 2 stars, but I can see why people would give it more stars than that. Okay. I read this book in January of 2025. So it's been a whole year and I barely remember it. But the one thing I remember is the rage I felt while reading this book. In 5 Years by Rebecca Sherrill. I think this is also controversial because I think a lot of people love this book, but I hated this book. I hated everything about this book. I barely remember what happened in this book. I gave it 2 stars. I don't know why I finished this book truly, but I did. Actually, I do know why, because it makes you finish it to know what's happening. So I read most of this book because I was under the impression that, if you don't want spoilers, just skip to the end. I was under the impression that she got with her dying best friend's man. So I read the whole book like there's no way she does this. Sorry, I can't even do this. I just hated this book. It was just so bad. And then you get to the end and you're thinking, I just read this whole book. Maybe there's an explanation for this. And the explanation is that you don't understand your emotions. You don't know the difference between love and hate, or love and sadness. Like, yeah, I don't want to give too much about this book away. If you want to read it, I think a lot of people really enjoy it, and I guess I could see why they do, but I really disliked this book. So this is all over the place, but anyways, this is one of my least favorite reads of the year. There is only one that is above this, and the one above this is my fault entirely. So this is technically my worst read of the year. Okay. I don't have this last book. It is Claire Casey's Had Enough by Liz Alterman. I'll put it right here. I received this as an ARC from NetGalley, so I had to read it. And my fault for requesting this ARC without really paying attention to the description, I guess. If I were reading this on my own, I would have just DNF'd it. I would have never rated it. So my rating barely matters, but I gave it 1 star. Again, this is no hate to the author, no hate to the book. I think many people would really enjoy this book, but I just didn't. It was about a very disheveled, overwhelmed mother who has 3 kids and a husband that is basically a 4th kid. And it's just about her life. I think it happened in the span of like 1 or 2 days. And to me, the book was too fast-paced. It was too over the top, like just unrealistic. Like everything that could go wrong went wrong in that matter of time. I think some people definitely could really connect with this book, but I didn't enjoy it, and it's partly my fault. So yeah, take that with a grain of salt, but the rest of these books, specifically this one, you don't have to take with a grain of salt. They suck. Sorry, that is so mean. You don't have to take with a grain of salt. I just didn't like them. And now that I am done being negative, even though I had a very long list of books that I didn't love for 2025, I loved so many books in 2025, and my average rating was almost 4 stars. I think it was like 3.8 or 3.9. And my most common rating was 4 stars and 4.5 stars. So I don't want you to think that I just hate reading and I hate books and whatever. I read 75 books and these were the worst ones. If you're interested in my favorite books of 2025, that should be up on my channel. I'll link it down below. Thank you so much for watching. If you agree with any of these, please let me know. If you loved any of these, please let me know. And also let me know your least favorite book of 2025. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Bye.